Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital.
Hey Teddy, have you noticed how little attention science and health issues get in the media?
Totally, Edgar, yet science information is very important.
Yeah, for sure. That's why the Health Journalists Network is here.
How can they help?
They are a group of journalists dedicated to advancing public understanding of healthcare issues through impactful reporting on health and science.
Oh, really?
Yes, they meet up every month with scientists and researchers, policymakers, and activists at the science media cafes. They then relay what they discuss to the public.
Does that benefit us?
Oh yes, very much so. This helps with health and science literacy for a healthy Ugandan society.
Okay. I love getting informed about science and health issues. Health information makes all the difference between life and death. I'll look them up and engage them.
That's great. They are based all over the country.
Oh, okay. That's interesting, and they should be making real impact.
They are empowering health communities through journalism. Journalists can save lives just like doctors.
The Alternative Digital. Real issues, real talk.
Gladly, we are back, and we thank you for your patience. Sometimes we wish we couldn't break because of such heated debates, but of course, as a procedure, then you also have to give people a break, and so that they can have some bit of a deep breath. We are back. I will ask our producer to first of all give us that short clip of the president in regards to the Indian Ocean. That's going to shape our discussion as we come back just in a few seconds. Of course, Mr. Museveni's speech is what would guide us into our remaining minutes to discuss the Indian Ocean question, if I may use it that way. Let's come back in just after watching this short video.
Because Uganda, even if you wanted to build a navy, how can you build it? We don't have access to the sea. The political organization in Africa is so irrational. Some of the countries have no access to the sea. For economic purposes, but also for defense purposes, you are stuck. How do I export my products? That's why we have got endless discussion with Kenya, and then this one stopped, then another one comes, then the railway, the pipeline, the what, we discuss. But that ocean belongs to me. Because where is my ocean? I am entitled to that ocean. In future, we are going to have wars. In the future, we are going to have wars. How can you say that you are in a block of flats, that the compound belongs to only the flats on the ground floor, that the compound belongs to the whole block. All the flats are entitled to the compound.
Yeah.
There's no way you can say. So may I just watch these people? You are really endangering yourself. How can you have a situation like this? Uganda is landlocked inside here. But where is my ocean? My ocean is the Indian Ocean. So, no, it belongs, really, me. I'm on the top floor of the block. And then you say the compound belongs only the ones on the ground floor. This is madness. So that's why I say, you people, you better unite economically for the sake of prosperity. If you want prosperity, market. But if you want stability and also strength in the world, so that you can go and to the moon also, you go to the moon. The ones who have been to the moon are big ones, not small people.
Superpowers.
The Americans, the Chinese, the Russians, and the Indians now. Our friends, the British, are still here with us. On Earth, they have not gone. They can't go. It's too much. One country can't manage. The French are here with us. All these fellows, except those four, because size matters. So that's why we say, you people, why don't you look at East Africa so that you deal with the issue of strategic security? These are the 7 points in the manifesto.
I want to think that that's enough, and of course it gives us a very wonderful preamble. But of course, also from myself, there is a preamble I would also want to add on to Mr. Museveni's one, and to remind the public that on 29th October 1978, His Excellency Idi Amin Dada attacked TZ, and of course with an attempt, with the intention to annex Kagera region to Uganda. We all remember as historians and of course as intellectuals. In 1996, with the help of the, of course, Ugandan government, there is no doubt that UPDF, of course, supported Laurent Jose Kabila to go to Congo. And 1997, Mobutu Sese Seko Kuku Wasabanga was no more. In 1990, of course, also UPDF men. At the time, I think there were no women that helped them move to Rwanda through Mirama Hills, September 31st, 1990. I mentioned some of the Ugandans that were part of that war, and of course that's back in the day, Lieutenant Okwiri Raboni. There was Anthony Chakabade. I think he passed on and buried last week or thereabout. He was one of the people that supported RPF. But also there was another war, of course, between Ugandans and RPF, a 6-day war in Kisangani in 2000. I'm giving that preamble for us to understand the dynamics when it comes to regional and regional politics. But also some time ago, Mr. Museveni, and I will use his very, very Swahili words, he said, and I quote in verbatim, hakuna mtu wa Kenya atavua nsumaki kutoka kwa Mijingo. You all remember when there was an issue with the Mijingo Island, and he went there and said, no Kenyan will fish, not even one Somaki. That's one fish, yeah? From Mijingo Island. So the gentleman is back, saying, as you have heard, he is entitled to Indian Ocean. Colleagues, the gentleman is very, very, very particular in his words. I do not know whether we would consider him as anti-geography, because geography put Uganda this side and put Kenya the other side. Professor, beginning from there, what do you pick from Mr. Museveni's words? He needs Indian Ocean, by the way, first of all. It's something you should also consider as you speak.
For once, I side with Mr. Museveni.
Hey, you see? Because your father was one of, one of them.
I listened to the speech extensively, and I picked his mind. Because, these days he speaks so arrogantly that some people, he doesn't mind his speech, so people just pick that aspect of. And sometimes last time fridge, then the ocean is mine. But this was the spirit which Mr. Museveni was using. And he tried to elaborate it that if you're on the floor, 50 floors, and you can't have access to the ground floor. He used another illustration of, like, imagine I'm with Saleh. He was talking like Kenyans are brothers. And in the room, and he doesn't give me access. Then I'm like, this man also is sometimes disturbed. And now imagine in his party, NRM, where he does not for 40 years give people even access to be the chairman, and vice has also felt it. Yes, as a human, he's felt that in human, like ring fencing off.
He's testing the pain.
Yeah, he's testing the pain, because ring fencing, if you see Africa, there are no boundaries. Those boundaries were created by Bismarck. Africa naturally has no boundaries. So, the leader, I'm a chairman of Labour Party. What people don't know, and I have documents to share with you, Norman, is that the first party people say is the Democratic Party. Never. The first party with a legical number in Uganda is the Labour Party. Its leader, Daudi Sekuma, said, opposed Uganda or East Africa to go, like Uganda to be independent alone, and Kenya and Tanzania. He was like, we have to get independent as East Africa. Incidentally, if we got independent as East Africa, then we would have East Africa as a country, and Uganda would have access to a coastline. So the players now, later, for their selfish means, the people who came later after the DPs and everything, for them, they try to get independence as a single unit and Uganda. And that makes us suffer as a country. And then we've been subjected to lack of access to the coastline. So, Labour Party, and in this case, this is where I can, because I doubt that the president is willing to discuss issues of East African cooperation. Because if we have to talk about the political federation of East Africa, he would lose. He would lose monopoly over Uganda. And that's why I believe maybe he's not so interested, because if he's so interested, let him appoint me as a minister of East Africa and I'll make it happen. Because East Africa can come as one even tomorrow, because we have the same issues. Right now, the political issues of Tanzania, which was the only country which was independent, and Kenya and Uganda are the same. Until we have political federation, where political parties like mine, the Labour Party, can operate in Tanzania, can operate in Kenya, in Rwanda. Their NRM, ODM, all those fake parties cannot operate in East Africa, because they have just selfish issues about their principles, are more about their countries. Yet, like first in the Labour, we talk about free movement. One of the issues which was in the East African Protocol is the free movement of labor. By now, a Ugandan should be going to work in Tanzania and Kenya without being asked for working visa.
You saw Karua being grilled here.
That he has to apply and everything. So these guys are just comedians. They don't wish East African well. President Museveni, Suruyo, they don't want the corporate, they don't want the federation. But if we are to have the federation operational, then we will not have the bottlenecks he's talking about. And therefore, Ugandans would have access. Yeah, that is our natural right. This, I have strong faith.
Professor, in 1 second, how would you feel if Kenyans also said that, you look, guys, You have fuel in Albertine. So also we should have a share there, because you see, for some reason it beats any other person's understanding. For now, the person, as of now, you at least at par with President Museveni. I watched some Kenyan who said that even Mr. Museveni had slept at his home in 80s, and he was saying, how would Ugandans also feel that we also want to have a share of what they collect from the gorillas, tourism, and also the Albertine? Why don't you manage what you have and also discuss diplomatically about how you can also tap into their advantage?
Pan-Africanism. These are resources for Africa. In any case, we are disadvantaged that Tanzania might gain from our oil more than us, because the pipeline is passing through Tanzania. If it had gone through Kenya, the Kenyans were going to get a share of the oil.
Do you blame it onto them or to yourselves?
No, definitely the sharing is an African issue. Back in the days, all our African, I remember when I used to go in the village, they would bring one plate. In Africa, would share on one plate. And that is the spirit. And as President Museveni puts it, we should share let Kenyans also share on our oil. Let's share also on the cost. Then also President Museveni, let the people in NRM also have an advantage of being the chairman of also NRM. Don't ring fence it for yourself and for your family. Then you cry for the coastline. The sharing is a natural issue, and Kenyans should understand the spirit. Here, he speaks so maybe arrogant that they think he's talking about taking their seat, but he's saying that as African, if we don't unite, because he talked about the Americans, he talked about the Indians, he talked about, he said the British have failed because of numbers. Now, in this case, he comes as a Pan-Africanist. And if he was true to his words of being a Pan-African, then his speech is in context. I would support him that we have to have equal access to the coast as Africans, because apart from Bismarck, the way he's actually splitting Uganda into many districts is what Bismarck did to split, and those colonialists to split Africa into many. And he's also doing it in our own country.
What are you trying to
we have 150 districts, I think now. We are
for easy administration, you forget that. You need easy access to your LOC5, to your district council. So
for me, in the spirit of federalism, let him walk the talk, and he starts. Actually, you remember 10 years ago, he was saying he was staying so as to help the Federation of East Africa. But what has he done in the 3 Bisanjas they gave him before? No. He should empower some of us who are Pan-Africans, who are after African, East Africa, to federate. If we federate, then we will not have that issue of the ocean anymore.
If I may ask you, of course, before I cross to Mpambara and Mr. Ocheno, had Kenya had a president of the same reasoning? I don't want to say a warmonger, for lack of another word, but going back to the precedent of April 1978 by Amin, and of course Mwalimu Nyerere couldn't stand the stubbornness in courts of Amin. When Amin attacked, you know how things went so bad with the Ugandans. Do you think there could be some bit of war drums? Because as we speak, the Mijingo Island, no one, and I repeat, he used his words, hakuna mtu wa Kenya atavua.
Unfortunately,
so, do you think that could be like some bit of war drums, especially with how the Sun tweets also, not once or twice, he has mentioned about attacking Kenya or something?
Yeah, President Museveni talked about the Kenyans being experts in riots. And unfortunately, all the leaders, most leaders of Uganda since independence, are experts in riots. In school, they are the people who led riots. Everywhere, I talk about Obote. Obote was discontinued from Makere because he was leading a riot. President Museveni...
I knew Mr. Ucheno would nod his head, but he of course
President
will
Museveni has led riots, government changes in Rwanda, Sudan, South Sudan. So this spirit is in the whole, almost half of Africa and Congo. This thing of rioting is what is taking us backwards. Because even in a simple speech where he should have brought up his diplomacy and his point be known like I've brought it up, he's talking of we will fight. Yeah? And unfortunately, many Ugandans, actually I've been waiting for a week. He dodged, I think, intentionally. To say,
I will ask the colleagues in the control room, you will chop this video and send it to Honorable Wish.
These military people, everything is about rioting. Even what we could discuss as citizens. Yeah? And we reach a logical conclusion.
They want war.
They want war. Okay. There is no need of war. It is just a matter of discussion. If we have East Africa, then the federation, then the coast thing will be solved. And we don't need any riot. We just need to have a discussion, a conversation as Uganda first and as East Africa.
Okay, now where do I even begin? Maybe to remind you, Kagame is a major general and your friend whom you now concur with is a general. So when that's what he understands best. So if you want your diplomacy, try elsewhere.
Which
like
is that?
Yeah, and actually it's unfortunate that I'm associated with those kinds of even even from the school.
You see, but that is school.
That spirit is what is retrogressing, taking Uganda backward. That everything should be taken out of guns, riots, and that's why you see they fear people who have that inclination on riots more than people who use common sense.
Okay. Council Pambara, begin from there. I will not even have a specific question. You have heard what he has submitted. May you have rejoinder and or an additional submission.
The tone of delivery was definitely provocative. And I think that's why there's so many different explanations and readings from that speech alone that different people are trying to understand and put together and interpret. Museveni is a good communicator. I don't put that past him. So his communication is very intentional and his delivery is definitely intentional. But his frustrations are legitimate and like my colleague has said, for once there's an inclination for some of us to agree with him that
so you want to fight that, you want to help him fight the law of nature.
Also, I feel that's a misinterpretation because in itself, this can lead to war. Frustrations towards access to sea. For so many countries, not just Uganda.
In a second, Mpambara, are there situations where, honestly speaking, Uganda has felt the pinch, like, no, we are suffering this much because we have no coastline? Sure. No, just asking. On behalf of
let me first conclude
because the way he sounded, it's as if when you want to bring something from Kenya, it's like he goes through a lot. That's how he sounded.
I think with Ruto, he does go through a lot. There have been so many complications and rigidities in that relationship in terms of delivery. And I think, majority of Africans have called Ruto a puppet for the West. So it means there's so many frustrations under there that most times don't even come to the surface for us to know.
Who isn't?
Sorry?
Who isn't, in your view?
No, I mean when it comes to something like the sea, it's a legal issue.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Because it's already provided by the law that landlocked countries should be able to access.
Yeah. And we have the law that literally hasn't been abused by, I think, by United Nations, where we have access, literally we have access. And they can't wake up in the morning and just block it. But I want to take you back to the video where this gentleman sounds like it's hard to deal with.
No, let's look at the example of the fact that this pipeline has had to go through Tanzania than Kenya, which is a much shorter route. But Uganda has decided to choose Tanzania. What is the underlying issue under the reason why Uganda had to decide that the pipeline is going to go through Tanzania and not Kenya? Do we feel maybe there are certain issues we do not know that are not at the surface, that have not come out to the public, that, there are certain frustrations that perhaps are coming from the Kenyan government for Uganda to not be able to freely and equitably, access. I think for Museveni, it continuously talk about the frustrations that are coming from them accessing those ports, them accessing the sea. They are legitimate. When he's talking about, I feel even that war part is taken out of context. Because if you look at this issue a few years from now, a few decades from now, this is a war. It can cause a war.
He said
so many countries, look at Ethiopia and what it has gone through with Djibouti, what it has gone through with. This is a war-causing situation. So that's what he means. I feel that I'm not a supporter of Museveni at any given time, but the tone was taken out of context. It is legitimate that a situation like this is likely to cause war in the coming years if we don't resolve it.
Pambara, you declined to put on Mr. Museveni's shoes inter alia, but I will now force you to put them on in regards to this in particular. Would you have come to the media and address the world? Because the president is watched by the world. In that, you called it provocative mode of communication or tone, even when you have ambassadors and other diplomats that should have played that role. So would you have done the same?
No, definitely not. There are so many, we have very key relationships with both Tanzania and Kenya that should be respected through diplomacy. So for most of these conversations, it's usually dialogue. You need to sit down with your fellow leaders, with your fellow heads of states, and come up with a solution. But like he said, he's been frustrated
Would
because...
you consider that as politicking? Because in that case, in fact, I would also push the same question to Mr. Joseph Ochino. Why now?
I cannot answer on his behalf that way.
He will tell
but
us his foreign policy.
Okay. I've not yet finished.
Yeah, of course, after you to him.
So it should have been a diplomatic conversation, yes. It has put the rest of the countries at tiptoe with Uganda for provoking them like that over a situation that they could have diplomatically sat down and discussed. And I don't know what their conversations are going like between himself and Ruto. Samia, I think in August of this year, committed to all East Africans being able to access the sea, the ocean. So on her end, I think things are okay. Uganda is ably trading. They are okay in terms of Uganda and Tanzania relationships. But for Kenya, I feel there's a rigidity there that maybe is not coming to the surface, and I'm not sure what it is. Where exactly is it that, even just for something as simple as a pipeline, we've had to take a much longer route through Tanzania than Kenya? Does it come back to some of these issues we've been facing? There have been issues where Ugandan security has been arresting Kenyan fishermen on that small part of Lake Victoria.
I wanted to mention it because the same Kenyans were complaining, and they said that they simply didn't say, because what is factual is that Uganda has the biggest part of Lake Victoria. But they said UPDF crosses to even the smaller portion of the waters, and beats and tortures the Kenyan fishermen. And Kenyans
they're in jails even here in Uganda.
And Kenyans have played their, diplomacy and, of course, not made noise in courts like the gentleman is making. And maybe also another reminder is that in 1989, Arap Moi brought his army up to Busia border and Malaba, wanted to fight with Mr. Museveni. I think
because Museveni had threatened.
You see?
Because the warmonger in Uganda had threatened.
That is what we want to interrogate. What is it that is between Uganda, when it comes to East African countries, and the warmongering, much as Professor is now pro the gentleman?
No, it's not proper say. It's not proper say. But maybe to conclude, it brings around a big question on whether a statement like that means that from now East Africa should share most of the resources we have. Because how is it that now when we cross to DRC to try and dig some gold, now there are issues. When you try to cross to Sudan to dig something, there are some issues. So does that bring a question that, with this integration, or if we are thinking about a federation, that all these should be shared resources? For us to say that we are a united front, we're able to access Kenya's resources, Kenya is able to access Uganda's oil, Uganda is able to cross to Tanzania to access certain things. How does it happen? But also we know that sometimes when some of these solutions fail, countries like Ethiopia have had to buy some land from like Somaliland to be able to access parts of the sea. The US has done the same over a period of time. So is it that we are failing maybe to come to that conclusion that we need to look at other solutions that may be able to resolve this? But also it's us realizing that, you know, the integration of East Africa does not just stop at just access to the sea, trade, investment. The political and social environment as well has to allow free movement of people, of citizens. So if you Kenyans are trying to cross into Uganda and you're arresting them because of political reasons, what integration is that? If others are trying to cross to Tanzania to do the same thing and you're arresting them.
That's what he mentioned, Mpambara, who the president mentioned, that for security reasons. And I'll give you some precedents. I have a gentleman by, I think he was called Eriche Ramirez Sanchez, code name Carlos de Jaco. Americans left US, came, picked him from Khartoum, took him because of the security question, and not him alone. So is it wrong, in any case, because now you brought this discussion back, for a gentleman to go to Kenya and of course have whatever he wants, and before you even go to the entire political integration, that you can still manage independently as a country, go deal with whatever in a micro manner.
Is it okay if I understand the question?
I am repeating. You said one of the things, for instance, that you do not feel comfortable with is, for instance, a gentleman from here going and picking people from Kenya. And also, of course, you mentioned these two activists. But then, where it is a security threat, would that call for the entire political integration, or rather, this can be managed in a micro way as a single state in isolation?
I think, first of all, if we are not looking at institutions working for the entire East African region, we will have issues like that. Political segregation, social segregation, those are the issues we are talking about. If we are talking about a progressive unit, even politically, by the way, there should be certain things in place, certain systems in place, where you're able to handle such issues. How is it that if Martha wants to come and practice from Uganda, to practice law, yet remember we have an East African Court of Justice and whatnot, and we are supposed to share values and cooperation and whatnot as a community. She has to apply here in Uganda again to practice and get a certificate, and it complicates things. So what happens when there are actual systems that are working for the entire East African bloc? We do have all those complications. The political question would be the same thing. There would be institutions that cater to all of it. There would be institutions. So we are complaining about, Museveni is complaining about the fact that he's failing to dab down on who exactly is going to be able to talk to access the sea, but it's also his fault. He's been in power the longest. So why are these institutions not working for the entire East African bloc? Why are they not there?
He should feel the pain.
He should be feeling the pain.
Okay.
So again, he shouldn't be crying.
Okay. Let's cross to Mr. Joseph Ochieno. And maybe for the benefit of our viewers, you would gladly share with us what was that you had in terms of the foreign policy, at least because you see this entire discussion, when you look at the gentleman's speech, it has nothing else to do with rather than the foreign policy when it comes to our cooperation and working relationship with our neighbors. Because like I mentioned earlier, Kenyans are also saying, like also Mpambara has mentioned, UPDF does not stop at beating Ugandans, it also stretches its hands to the Chikuyu and the Masai that also try to do the fishing on our lake, other waters. And perhaps they do not even have the information on the water boundaries. But look, when we are fishing this side, maybe this is where we stop. Shall we proceed, Mr. Ochieno?
And here we are talking about what was, historically. You know, sadly for you guys, you're ruled by warmongers who came through to power through war, brutal war, in fact. Very sad indeed. In context, the party I represent, the party I am the should-be president for, has never participated in any overt war with any of the neighbors since independence, and we're the party that has governed this country twice through elections, and we're the only party that has never been defeated at elections, or rather defeated out of power. So every time the people give us the mandate, and local turncoats using foreign interests combine to usurp the power of the people in such crude manners. So Obote 1 and Obote 2, nothing. But in Obote 1, we supported covertly the liberation forces in Congo. We supported the Lumumbist forces at the level of logistics, we would say, but we supported them in principle. In Obote 2, we supported the startup of the SPLA-SPLM in 1983. And in both Obote 1 and Obote 2, we supported the liberation struggles in Southern Africa,
South Africa, yeah.
Both politically, legally, diplomatically, and materially. Quite clearly, in none of those did we commit, boots on the ground, if you want to present it that way. For the Lumumbist one, I'm extremely proud. For the SPLM, it's gone very bad. It's almost criminally embarrassing. For the liberation struggle in Southern Africa, my young friends don't know that they should be proud that it was the foundation of Uganda People's Congress. In South Africa, they very easily forget, except President Mbeki at his inauguration, who formally made that remark. But most importantly, for the purposes, again, of your my two colleagues, in particular my younger, fantastic colleague here, that Idi Amin, in fact, was given to the Republic of Uganda, later backed by Gaddafi, that people like to hail, because Amin was used to stop the progressive forces of the UPC administration, particularly because we were then at the time, Obote 1, supporting Lumumbist forces in Congo, and then the anti-apartheid forces, contextualizing these things broadly. Beyond that, we continuously saw ourselves not only as Pan-Africanists, and we're founding members of the Organization of African Unity very robustly with the Kwame Nkrumah, looking towards one African government within as short a time as possible, but recognizing that we would do so through regional integration and consolidating regional unity. So then in 1967, when we constituted the East African Community, it is extraordinary that within a very short time, the community was not only viable, but it was so closely integrated that we possibly needed hardly 5 years more and would almost certainly be operating as one mini government. And the nonsense that is being presented today did not apply at the time, although with the restrictions of borders. I'll tell you through other literature that in 1972, British Prime Minister Ted Heath said that the East African Community, if it hadn't collapsed, and I think it was later than that, after the collapse of the East African Community, it was going to make it very difficult for them, meaning us, meaning the imperialist forces, to penetrate East African market. I don't know whether your viewers, particularly young viewers, and particularly deep intellectual viewers, get what I'm talking about. And particularly if they're necessarily interested in the dynamics of polity in this country, this region, and particularly this continent. That sort of really is where sometimes we forget. We see glaring men and a few women in town, but when we know they're really agents against the interests of this country and this continent, and they're being pushed by external forces. And so sometimes we see and then we shout about the Musevenis, but not seeing the longer-term strategic implications. That said, therefore, I find it interesting that, as Yvonne says, if Mr. Museveni was a Pan-Africanist, I've said authoritatively and officially, Mr. Museveni is not a Pan-Africanist. You can't be a Pan-Africanist and invade Africa. You can't be a Pan-Africanist and conquer Africa. But before I say I do that, maybe let me pull back to contextualize your question. Obote 1, as I said, those are our involvements. Idi Amin, he invades Tanzania with the consequences. But under Idi Amin, regime. He threatens Kenya, you know. Now, the other interim administrations of Lule, Binaisa, and Mwanga, you could say too short, no incidents. But Mr. Museveni's regime has invaded or threatened to invade every neighbor of Uganda, except only recently Tanzania. Kenya, those threats that you refer, and in fact, 1989, I came from London and I was visiting the region. Of course, I was a refugee, couldn't come here. And I had a very terrible experience in the Manga border coming to Tanzania, to Kenya by road. I think I've talked about it here. So Uganda and Kenya nearly went to war, these warmongers. You know, invaded and occupied Rwanda and caused the genocide there. We were net contributors to the genocide in Burundi. Invaded Congo twice, contributed to the mess in Sudan. In fact, right now, South Sudan, you know, that shameless thing taking place in Juba is an extension of Uganda's experience. In Kenya, we had, beyond invasion, we had several experiences, including direct interferences in the elections. We've got terrible records. In Somalia, of course, our boys and girls are there on behalf of Anglo-America, not a Pan-Africanist thing. I can stretch into the other neighboring countries. So it's a terrible record for Mr. Museveni. That is not Pan-Africanist. Number two.
What is it if it's not Pan-Africanism?
No, it's conquest and invasion and operation as Nyampala on behalf of the anti-African forces. Now, you can't be in power in Africa for 40 years and you're Pan-Africanist and you talk the nonsense that Mr. Museveni... But it was so basic. My two colleagues find solace in context. I don't. Because for the Museveni, the clever Museveni, interestingly, today I listened to slightly more. If you stretch it from the time that now brings Britain, it's such a contradictory statement. You start from basically saying war, mine, very, very cheap, you know, nursery school conversation, to contextualizing within the region, because we have it. There are global conventions on that govern, you know, landlocked countries. It's never been challenged. It has never been an issue. There's never been any evidence that Kenya is abusing that. It's never happened. By the way, on the question of the oil pipeline, you know, officially it is the case that the Tanzanian route was found to be much more economically viable. Surprise, surprise, allegedly. And then number two is true, they raised the security question, but the security question is more of geopolitical regional politics, which again narrows down to Museveni, Ruto, and their dynamics rather than the reality of Kenya, quote, per se. The people who are paying huge for that are ordinary citizens of Uganda. In 1969, there is the two clips. One of them was Mr. Dr. Obote then instructing the Minister for East African Community, and I'll share the clip with you guys, where he says that the Minister for East Africa seated at Arusha and the East African parliamentarians from Uganda are instructed that when they're in Arusha and when they go to Arusha, they should legislate and implement legislation and everything else to build one East Africa rather than to serve the interests of Uganda. It's on record. This as early as 1969. And so you do that time as a president, as a governing leader at the time. And then Mr. Museveni comes, East African community is broken by Idi Amin. They try to rebuild it, but they rebuild it around, you know, the gentleman's agreement, and then you begin to integrate. You bring Rwanda because of brotherhood. You bring in Congo because of stolen gold. You bring in Somalia because of, you know. So no, if you're an integrationist, Mr. Museveni should have been saying that as African people, they see without saying man, and the regional opposition you made is important. That Museveni, you know, speaks what he genuinely means, and we underestimate it in many ways. All he simply had to say was that, look, you know, we are one people as a continent, and so this sea belongs to us. It's the more reason, if you don't add it, of course I'm a linguist too, if you don't add that, the meaning is different. So he didn't add it, and the meaning was different. The meaning was as interpreted by Kenyans, and is extremely arrogant. Okay. So he should really have said that as a continent, the more reason why you should integrate. when you look at the reasons why we don't have an East African government yet, some of the obstacles and the resistance by Tanzania was in part because of the term limit things in Uganda. And that is interestingly credited to apparently Jakaya Kikwete, who seemed to be very much of a Tanzanian nationalist. But it was not about his holdback, but it was part of his frustration that Uganda did not play part of the ball. But Yvonne, finally, I have said again and again and again that the regional East African communities, which are very close and viable nation states, the delays was when they were introduced. The new nation states, including Rwanda, part of the convergence criteria, bring them together. You needed to meet some benchmark, economic, social, political, and definitely legal in terms of legislation. As you rightly say, we've got the East African Court of Justice, or whatever it is, and you see the contradictions on Martha Karua. So no, the will is not there. Mr. Museveni and his group are basically taking citizens of this continent for a ride. I don't think the answer is going to come from my kind soon. I think the answer lies in younger Africans, younger East Africans of your generation that you guys drive, younger Africans at universities and colleges debating, and younger Africans engaging in the political processes and demanding that we want one African government now. Our young people in the 60s demanded for that. We young people of the 80s demanded for that. And we demanded for liberation struggles in South Africa. And I organized rallies and demonstrations, about these things, global, about Africa. I don't see why Museveni does this thing. Ugandans are quiet. Universities are quiet. Professors are quiet. Political leaders are quiet. Political leaders are quiet. Of course not him. You know the concept I'm trying to come up, And sort of really mini business as usual. What is it take? It's actually causing more bad blood. Meaning tomorrow when we discuss conversations around integration, you'll find you'll find it much more dirty a language in Kenya or perhaps in Mwanza. And of course more recently the Agatha unacceptable thing doesn't help it at all.
I want to give you 1 minute so that you can use it to also air out your closing remarks, but also with this question. How differently would you have managed the situation? Because she was avoiding his issues.
No, I got it.
How differently would you have addressed
it was completely unnecessary. And by the way, on this one, I found the journalists who were there laughing rather than challenging Mr. Museveni. I find it actually extraordinary. Journalism is part of my trade, for the state. I expect it to be better. That a journalist should not you don't let a head of state make such an outrageous statement and let him get with it. There was no need. By the way, have you guys ever asked why Museveni said so? Have Ugandan goods been blocked in Kenya? What caused that? It wasn't. It was completely unnecessary. It was a provocative thing, so it doesn't apply. Okay. Dealing with that, I would be saying that by now, particularly if I had been a president for 4 years, the East African integration would be much more of a reality in 4 years than Museveni's 40 years.
Sorry, I cannot leave without asking you this. You mean, in the event that diplomacy fails completely, which other measures would you use as UPC?
There'll be no circumstances in which diplomacy would fail about access to the sea. No, let me tell you this. No, because it's important for your viewers, and you're a lawyer.
Yeah, let me add you.
I don't know.
Answer both of them. Yeah. You seem to sound that there is no way how diplomacy could have failed. And I want to also put on to you as UPC, when Amin had issues with, of course, with you and let alone with TZ, you did not give him a chance of diplomacy. You and Nyerere considered going, of course, applying force. Are you good at applying diplomacy as UPC?
No, we are the most fantastic in applying diplomacy, and the evidence has prevailed. We don't necessarily have the time to do so. In any case, actually, the main thing was, one, particularly, the fact, as Roger said, that Bruto Idi Amin, Gaddafi's friend, they dared Tanzania, indeed invaded Tanzania, and have got detail. Nyerere, when he came from the briefings on the ground, particularly in terms of what happened in Kagera, he was furious. The guy was extremely emotionally mad. He nearly was getting crazy, the manner in which his country had been humiliated, and we're talking lots of people. The manner in which Tanzanians had been killed for nothing. So we did the right thing, and in any case, Amin had been brought into here by forces backing apartheid and Zionism. So the sooner we got rid of Idi Amin and liberated this country for you guys, the better. Except we saved it and now we've liberated it for
Now, let's, Professor, we have certainly this discussion deserved longer time, but of course, by God's grace, we shall maybe create the same time, and maybe we shall have a different arrangement.
I think so.
Yeah, Professor, how different is Mr. Museveni's Pan-Africanism from that of Gaddafi, Kwame Nkrumah, of course, Patrice Lumumba, and
Obote. Yes.
And Nyerere? How different? You have 2 minutes, much as it may not be as enough, but of course, being an intellectual, I know you can summarize that. And then the same question to Mpambara. When you are answering, your closing remarks should follow, and so should Mpambara.
Yeah, President Museveni, before he was a diplomat, if you see all his speeches from 1986 to 96 to about 1996, but these days he is a bully. And in any case, these people, why?
Do you have evidence? You see, as a lawyer, do you have evidence?
Oh, why? Even those ties, the Kenyans. Because now the man sits with those ministers of East Africa. And these are guys who have changed over time. At one time, they were even minister of states, this is their country, county chiefs, and he has been president 40 years. So when he comes in a meeting, they feel he's bullying them. So that's why they are like, let's touch these nutties that this has no serious. And you see, Uganda is suffering because of having a bully president. Diplomacy, he knows, you come to negotiate at equal level. Have you seen, just like you see in Uganda here, does Museveni still have colleagues he talks to as how he used to talk to Elia Kategaya, Mushegas? He just talks to the Nabanjas, and how he thinks the way he talks to Nabanja is how he will talk to, and you remember, Kagame was the one who showed him, because facts are here. Kagame one time used to brush his shoes. So when he still comes, he has that mentality that he will bully him. And Kagame intentionally, I was present at one time in the Old Boys Association in Intare, when he told him, you people, even if you helped me, even if you are my boss at one time, now I'm the president of Rwanda. And indeed, when we had a diplomatic issue with Rwanda, it was not between Uganda and Rwanda. It was between President Museveni and President Kagame.
So what is wrong with Mr. Museveni talking to Nabanja? How different does he talk to Nabanja?
He's telling you diplomacy.
No, now let me tell you, like how he talks to his cabinet ministers of now.
Wait a second, Professor. How different does Mr. Museveni talk to Nabanja vis-a-vis how he talks to
Rugunda?
Rugunda
definitely is a diplomat, and he's also a colleague, an elder of his own right. So it's how he commands him, he's like, well, Mr. Rugunda will do this. Mr. Rugunda said, no, President Museveni, in diplomacy, it is not right to... Before he finishes...
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, he goes to... So that attitude is the same attitude when he's speaking to his colleagues. He still has that mentality, I will bulldoze them, and these guys are like, but you know this is a sovereign country.
Okay,
then they call their guys, okay, even if they agree. In that meeting with Ruto, he says, don't give him one. So all these are gimmicks behind to discipline him, to show him that we are a sovereign state, and you will not bully us.
Okay, now you have a minute, because now we can't add anything. And then we shall leave here. Because you're calling our president a bully, but no. Those are your words. So they are not words of this session. You know that disclaimer.
I hope you don't want to put me in trouble. Because you asked me, and these are things which put us in trouble. In my opinion, as an academic.
You should have this five. In your opinion.
In my opinion, and these are also not my words.
You are not...
not my words.
Pambara, you have less than 40 minutes.
As a lady.
Yeah, sure. Closing back. And of course, don't use a disclaimer. You say those are your words, not just like you said. That is his word. You are not obsessed. So you aren't attacked by any spirit. So those still remain your words. Pambara, you have 40 seconds, and then Give closing remarks, of course, summarizing the entire topical discussion, and then Shadivia.
Interesting, the names you've called Pan-African.
Yeah, sure.
I don't consider Gaddafi a Pan-African. He killed so many people. And it's very unfair to call someone who has butchered his own people a Pan-African. So we'll begin from there. So it begins from the fact that if you do not have that love for your own people, then it's very hard for you to display it in other forms of how you govern. It's very difficult. So I would not put him in the same leagues as Nkrumah. I would not put him in the same leagues as that's very unfair. It's very unfair to them.
But I think it's because we are out of time. When it comes to different scholars, you see, Pan-Africanism and or patriotism is interpreted differently, of course, depending on what lenses a specific individual.
But scholars have got benchmarks.
Yeah, sure. Because we have had so many people. Back in the day before Gaddafi had issues with the French president and so many other, with the West, when he was trying to rebuild Africa, having one currency, it is believed they paid too much money to the, okay, I won't mention the names of some Western media houses, to ensure that they paint him as a
so they're doing their version, and by that time, Gaddafi, since Gaddafi and Amin, causing the butcher of our people, there is no way in which you can qualify Gaddafi that. But like Yvonne is saying, partly because of media narratives, many Ugandans follow Gaddafi like a zombie, think the guy is whatever, and partly because he threw arms on behalf of these other people to break the neck of a democratic Ugandan citizens, but the people in the name of quote Islam. Okay. So I think this is a topic that we genuinely need to discuss.
We need time to redebate this, especially Pan-Africanism and its theories.
Yeah, sorry.
I had given 40 seconds. Again,
no, let me conclude. So I think for regional stability, it's very important to consider the fact that we need a very diverse and intersectional approach to what integration is going to look like. And you can't integrate if our political and social question is still different, and we assume that every other thing is going to flow easily, simply because we are pushing for access to the sea, or we are pushing for trade or investment, for free access. If we are not able to have free movement of people, free labor, free within the region, the other things will not move. It will not move. So for regional stability, all these things have to work together for us to establish the kind of federation we are looking for East Africa. So again, Museveni, I don't know what he was thinking, because it's majorly his fault. If he's the father of nations of Africa, I don't think he should be having these kinds of complaints right now.
Okay. Viewers, as you have heard, you will of course highlight what I said and each one of us what they said. But of course not in bad faith, because every single contribution that the gentleman and the lady aired out are not in bad faith. They aim out to ensuring that Uganda remains peaceful, in fact becomes more peaceful, and so should the region be, and the entire Africa as a continent, and of course globally. We believe that when we are here, we add some bit of crystal contribution towards ensuring that the world becomes a better place for all of us to live. Let me sign out and catch you some other time. Norman.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.